The six line profile is kind of a complicated profile because it's a profile that has three distinctly different life phases, and each one of those phases is essential to the full expression of the potential of the six line. So I like to think of the six line profile as kind of being similar to the archetype of the maid, the mother, and the crone. When you start off in your life as the maid, you're not the mother and you're not the crone. So there's this unknown ahead of you. And even though you can fully exemplify the energy of the maiden, you really cannot embody the understanding of what it means to be the mother and the crone. Once you become a mother, then that archetype of the maiden is still within you. And so you still have within you elements of the maiden, even as the mother. And once the mother becomes the crone, same thing. The crone can still tap into the archetype of the maiden and the mother. The sixth line is like that. The first phase is an experimental phase. You are a deep experiential learner. You live in that phase until your Saturn return. Saturn return, you move into the second phase, being on the roof. And in that phase, you still integrate and experience an understanding of that third line phase, that youthful phase. And then as you move into the final phase, as the role model at the age of 50, you do still have that understanding of the experimental cycle and the roof cycle all rolled up into one deep expression. Understanding that that sixth line is always also going to have that experimental piece, I think is really important, because there's sort of a fantasy I think that people have that once you get into the full mature expression of the sixth line as a role model, or an adept, as I like to call it in quantum human design, that you'll never make a mistake again. You'll never experiment and explore again. Or all of a sudden you'll come off the roof from that second phase and poof, you'll become this social butterfly just like you were in your youth. And none of that's really true. When you are in the mature expression of the role model energy, which happens after 50. So six line profiles are technically late bloomers, which is ironic because they're always in a hurry to get to that phase. But you can't dink with the timing of it. You have to go through all the phases. And even though you feel this pressure and this sense of urgency around mission and purpose, you have to go through all of those phases. And when you get to the final phase, that adept role model phase, you still deeply understand and oftentimes still live out the third line aspect, that experimental part, as well as the roof aspect, that aloof, sort of distant watcher quality that comes from being on the roof. So you never lose all the parts of the journey of the role model. You incorporate all of those into your experience in that final mature expression as the role model after your Chiron return around the age of 50. As I said, the sixth line has three distinctly different life cycles. The first life cycle is very similar to a third line profile. So if you're new to this, go back and listen to the video that I made about the third lines. You have experimentation and exploration as part of your learning strategy. And as I said, that never goes away. Just because you're mature doesn't mean you don't experiment. It just means you're hopefully a little more selective about what you choose to experiment with. But that sixth line energy always contains within it experimentation. I'm a sixth line. I always say I'm a sixth line, but I play a third line on TV because I'm still always exploring and sometimes not getting it right first time out the chute. In the second phase of the sixth line evolution, the sixth line profile, starting at Saturn return, going till Chiron return, so about 28 to about 50, the sixth line goes through a second phase called being on the roof. This is a deep, deep integrative phase where the sixth line has the purpose, first of all, of healing from the first cycle of experimentation and exploration, and also a cycle of learning and watching and integrating what you learn as well as what you've experienced into a mature expression of your knowledge and your wisdom. But it's a weird phase because in that second phase, that roof phase, everything kind of shuts down. It's like the pilot light on your furnace goes down to like barely burning. And the important thing to remember is in the second phase, you're stockpiling energy. So you're ready when you come off the roof at 50. So in the second phase of the sixth line evolution, the being on the roof phase, you have one important job. And that important job, or it's maybe two important jobs. That first job is to learn and integrate and process everything you've ever experienced in your whole life and to watch and see what other people are doing. The second job is, again, to stockpile energy. You're going to burst onto the scene at 50 in this integrated, mature expression. And if you haven't done the healing work, done the integration work, taken the time to rest, and honestly taken the time to just sit and drool, because that's kind of what the second phase of the sixth line process is like. You really need time to sit and think. You really need time to process. You really need time just to watch. And it'll feel to you in that second phase almost as if you're kind of muffled or even shut down. The intensity of the previous phase is going to drift away and feel like you can't even contact that juiciness. You won't want to do anything that's irrelevant. You won't want to play. You won't want to make small talk. You won't want to waste your energy on anything that's not related to your purpose and mission, because right now in that second phase, you're integrating that deeply, and you have to do that. Otherwise, you arrive on the doorstep of being a role model, exhausted and depleted, and that's when you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable to actually experiencing a massive disruption. So Ra used to teach that when the sixth line comes off the roof at the Chiron return, they drop like flies. That's such a Raism, right? But it's not that they drop like flies spontaneously for no reason. Part of what happens is when the sixth line crosses that Chiron return line, what's happening is Chiron's coming around saying to the sixth line, it happens to all of us anyway, but really heavily with the sixth line, Chiron is saying, okay, are you ready to live your purpose? Are you ready to really fulfill the mission and the purpose that's been calling you forward since you were like 3 years old? It's time. Are you ready? And if you're not ready, we're going to help you get ready. And if you are ready, we're also going to help you get ready. And the thing we're going to do is we're going to take out of your life, we're going to remove forcefully, we're going to burn away the dross of anything that's not in alignment with your purpose. So what happens oftentimes is any place where we've settled or compromised or haven't bothered to do the work, which is part of what happens when you're on the roof. When you're on the roof, you're not usually going to make big lifestyle changes. You're not going to get divorced. You're not going to shift careers. That's not a roof thing to do. So when you cross that Chiron line, all of a sudden you got to do the work to bring yourself into alignment with your purpose and your mission. And so that means sometimes that rug gets pulled because all that excess, all that extra, all that stuff that you've been dragging with you has to go away so that you can step into your purpose. The fully mature sixth line understands the importance of curiosity, exploration, experimentation, and they know how to take a quote unquote mistake and turn it into a lesson and a blessing. They also understand the importance of retreat and integration and the essential components, the integration and healing and time away really are, that how important that is for them to fulfill their purpose. They also really understand the need for self-renewal in order for them to sustain their purpose and their mission. They also understand the importance of measuring out their commitments and their energies carefully so that they stay sustainable in the fulfillment of their purpose. And of course, as a fully integrated sixth line, mature sixth line, they know how to know what works and what doesn't. And they know through the embodiment of their authentic self. It's not necessarily taking leadership in the way that we traditionally think of taking leadership. It's through the embodiment of their authentic self that the sixth line actually can lead others. We look to the sixth line as a role model. We watch them carefully and we see how they approach life. And from that understanding of how that sixth line is behaving, we learn about our own authentic self-expression. And that sixth line becomes a model for us to pattern ourselves after in the way that's right for us.